Welcome to this talk. I'm Ivona Ivkovic-Kihic from Graz University of Technology, and in the following few minutes I'll be presenting our paper, Visual Analysis of Player Interactions in Soccer Games. In team sports such as soccer, a fundamental task of coaches is the analysis of individual games to identify strengths and weaknesses, plan team lineups and tactics, and understand the critical key events that lead to success or failure. Also, coaches are often interested in observing local interactions between individual players of competing teams, because the success or failure of these interactions can have a very high impact on the match outcome. Moreover, evaluation of players' behavior in interaction can be beneficial for new player scouting. In this paper, we develop a visual analysis approach that addresses these challenges and aim at fostering an interaction-centric analysis process. This allows investigation of game-specific, player-specific, and shape-based relations of individual interactions in a soccer game. Our work relates to several topics, including spatio-temporal visual data analysis, glyph techniques, and applications in soccer data analysis. Our focus is on player interactions, which is not broadly covered in the related work up to now. We are using data extracted from a visual-based motion tracking techniques. It contains the positions of the soccer players as well as the ball during the time frame of a soccer match. Moreover, the data is annotated to indicate for each point in time the team that holds the ball. Due to reason of confidentiality, the dataset used are anonymized. As we define interactions, it occurs whenever the distance between two players falls below a certain proximity threshold. Starting from the point of closest distance at the reference time, we extract the trajectory segments of interacting players from the fixed time interval before and after. Then we use these segments for visual representation of players' motion in this interaction. We only extract interaction between players of the opposing teams that include the ball, as they are the most important ones to affect current and future game situation. We also filter out interactions that happen during non-active phases of the game, and the motion data from the second half of the game are mirrored in order to allow easier spatial mapping. In the need of consistent visual representation of both motion data as well as its semantic context in the game, we propose glyph design combining these two types of data. Our glyph design consists of two parts: an inner part representing the trajectories of two interacting players as well as the ball trajectory, and the outer ring that represents the ball possession before and after the interaction phase. In this figure, we see two players' trajectories colored according to the team color and one thicker line representing the ball motion. In general, the ball can move larger distances than the players during this interaction, and so in order to reduce overplotting in such cases, the ball trajectory is clipped whenever it exceeds the glyph circle. A non-transparent arrow then indicates the direction of ball movement outside the ring. To visualize ball possession, the outer ring is divided into two parts. The first smaller section, which is orange in this figure, is colored corresponding to the team holding the ball before the interaction. The larger section of the ring, which is blue in this figure, is colored based on the team holding the ball right after the interaction. In this way, it can be easily determined whether the interaction caused a change in ball possession or not. Further, we encode interactions in a feature vector, capturing the most descriptive properties of the involved motion data characteristic for a tackling event. The feature vector encodes the distances between players as well as the angular distance of their motion directions along 8 time steps within the interaction interval. This way, the feature vector is rotation and reflection invariant. Right figure we see illustrates the interaction data extracted from one soccer match on the dominant eigenplane of the resulting 16-dimensional feature space. The data exhibits a mainly continuous distribution of interaction data in this space, but also reveals prototypic strongly discriminating interaction trajectory pairs around the convex hull of this subspace. This is highlighted in this figure, and extracting such interaction prototypes enables a rough distance based clustering and will later also be utilized as anchor points for an explorative visual analysis process. So, in order to utilize visual and quantitative encoding, we created an interactive system that combines different views on the data. Here I'll present its two main features due to the time limitation of this presentation. The interaction matrix we can see in the figure shows data at a global level and is used as a starting point for player-based analysis. Cells in the upper part of the matrix represents overview of the number of mutual interactions between pairs of players. The ones on the diagonal shows the number of interactions of each player with all others. For both, color intensity corresponds to the overall number of interactions for a given pair or player. In the lower part, which is now highlighted, players' performances in the mean of ball possession are presented, and that's presented in the way that the cell color indicates the team of the player with more positive outcomes between the two players. Higher color saturation is indicating the higher percentage of positive outcomes. In this context, a positive outcome for one player means that either his team kept the ball or stole the ball from the opposing team during this interaction. Players in the matrix are ordered first by team, then by their role in team, which later allows for both the player-based performance analysis as well as an overall role-based assessment between teams. A soccer field view shows interaction glyphs as described before, plotted on the locations where they occurred. These interactions serve as trigger points for the situation animation, providing user with a more detailed view. When activated, history curve is shown on the field, connecting all the interactions in chronological order. Other than that, a user can do a similarity search by using the Euclidean distance between interaction feature vectors as a similarity metric. Also, user can explore feature space and interaction prototypes as well as do the filtering of the interactions in the toolbox. In order to demonstrate the usefulness of our tool and our approach and application itself, we analyzed an anonymized match from a well-known European club competition. First use case and the first discovery we noticed when analyzing this match was the change in distribution of glyphs representing interactions that lead to change in ball possession. As you can see in the pictures, in the first half, relatively even distribution is presented, while in the other half, most ball possession changes occur on the part of the field where the orange goal is, and it is easily noticeable that most of these interactions lead to blue team stealing the ball. This shows that the blue team was way more dominant in the second half, which is also reflected in the outcome of the match. It was 1-2 in the first half and 3-2 at the end of the game. An example of role-based assessment is given in this figure, where we see parts of the interaction matrix from two games between the same team. It is easily noticeable that the number of interactions between these two games differs, but the ordering of the matrix by players shows for which combination of player roles interactions have increased in particular, and this is highlighted in green in this picture. Next, another important analysis task is the investigation of individual player performances. The matrix plot for one of the games indicates a particularly strong involvement of the orange wide forward left with the blue wide midfield right player, as it can be seen on this figure. When we choose this pair of players and their mutual interactions are plotted on the field, we can notice some interesting things, and this is seen on soccer field view in the video. First thing we notice is that the most interaction happen on the side of the orange team. Then most of the interaction didn't end in the ball change, meaning that the orange player wasn't successful in his attempt to steal the ball. And the third thing is that the blue player even obtained the ball possession from orange player once, and it was in relatively close distance to the orange goal, which can be seen, and it's pointed by the black arrow. This reflects the above insight into the game dominance in the second half of the game on a player-focused level of details, showing that the orange forward player was heavily outgunned by the blue midfield player. Next, one of the other interesting situations we discovered during the analysis of the interaction glyphs is described in this video, where orange player lost the ball, probably caused by applied pressure of blue player, and this created a very dangerous situation with two blue players in ball possession and a free path towards the opposing goal. The fifth used case is based on a selected interaction glyph of interest, and our system allows the user to investigate additional information of the same type. Using this feature, we discovered that the result set indicates that parallel runs rarely lead to a change in ball possession, which is shown in upper figure. And comparing the sets of parallel run and crossover glyphs, which are shown on the lower image, we can also observe over a longer trajectory path lengths in the parallel runs, indicating that these types of interactions are generally much more fast-paced than the crossovers. So we have seen a set of basic but important analysis use cases which are relevant to soccer coaches and analysis. These range from an overall assessment of teams' performance to investigating the role, importance and performance of individual players, up to detailed analysis of key interactions and their influence on the game outcome. One issue is the problem of visual clutter when many interaction glyphs are superimposed in the spatial embedding. This problem needs to be addressed using appropriate means of visual reduction, like density-based scaling or visual simplification, and combined with suitable interactive detail-on-demand techniques. Another limitation is that our current way of extracting semantic interactions from the raw trajectory data enforces the assumption that any interaction only involves two players. Considering future work, the first step would be enchanting the cluster analysis of interactions by a visual cluster analysis tool. Then we plan to look at the differences in the interaction patterns between matches of the same teams and compare them with coaching strategies. Then it would be enchanting our shape descriptor and glyph representation and do the evaluation of the utilization and usability of our system and its individual components with end users such as soccer coaches. Thank you for your attention.